Oh, hello, world. Welcome to Comic Book News. Man, we got another great panel show in store for you tonight with two oldies and two newies, right? We got two veteran comic book news panelists, and we've got two brand new comic book news panelists. First, a couple of things, a couple of little tweaks. Every show, I like to throw a little tweak into the mix. So, like last couple of shows, our panelists will not be able to see the comments over in the comments section. Never fear, we have a special viewer comment segment at the end. You guys can feel free to chatter amongst yourself and do whatever you want, but we are going to concentrate on the conversation with each other. At the end of the show, we're going to open it up to questions, and if we see any new good ones or old good ones, we'll pull them up and answer them. There's one exception to this rule, and that is Super Chat. If you want to throw some money at me, then we're going to grind this show to a halt, and we're going to bring out the Super Chat, right? And we're going to make it rain with your Super Chat money, okay? And we're going to take that money and do something with it. It's going to go to comic book store in some way, shape, or form, whether it's through my collection or more likely through a donation to Bink or something like that. One other wrinkle to this rule, though. So, any amount of money, you throw $1, we're going to stop the show. We're going to answer your question. But the next time we stop the show, it's got to be more than the previous one. So it's got to be more than $1. And then the next time more than that. Otherwise, we'll save your chats to the end. All chats will be shown, or super chats will be shown eventually. And the good chats will be shown as well. Anyway, I've babbled and rambled enough. Now it's time to bring in our panelists. First, we're going to start with longtime contributor to this show and Terrence Stamp impersonator as General Zod, Adam Freeman from
Neil Zod.
Thanks, Adam. Welcome to the show. In your same crew of Phantom Zone criminals, we're going to bring in Cliff Biggers from Dr. Knows Comics and Comic Shop News. Hi, Cliff.
Correct. Hi there. How are you?
All right. Next, we've got a brand new contributor to this show. This guy does a lot of stuff online, but I don't know too much about him at all. I never met him before. Let's welcome to the show Jesse James of Jesse James Comics. Oh, dude, in the mask. You can keep that on if you want. I would actually, if you keep it on,
it's too hot.
I would prefer if you just wore it and we don't even mention it. Like there's no mention of it whatsoever.
Yeah, exactly. I'm ready to rock.
Great. Awesome. Thanks for coming to the show, Jesse.
Yep.
And last, certainly not least, I'm super excited about tonight's guest, Heidi McDonald from the Beat, the Comics Beat. Welcome, Heidi.
Hello. Hi, Dan. Hey, everybody. How's it going?
Going great. Super excited because Heidi, not one, but I think two of the topics came straight out of the comics journalism that you provide over at the Comics Beat. Is that what we call it, by the way? Is it the Beat? Is it the Comics Beat? What do you call that thing?
So I call it the Beat, but our URL is Comics Beat. But if you say the Beat, in comics terms, it means Comics Beat. So it doesn't mean the English beat or the special beat. So anyway.
Got it.
The Beat.
Confusing to me branding-wise, because if I say the Beat to somebody, that might not mean as much. But Heidi at the Comics Beat, check out her Twitter thing as well down there. So guys, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day. I'm hoping to make Tuesday evening sort of the time for comic book news, right? This is Wednesdays have started back up. Shops are getting back into business. People are getting back into buying comics again. So Tuesday nights are going to be a good time to talk about and promote things that might be happening on Wednesday, but also just a good time, maybe the calm storm that is Wednesday. And wow, speaking of Wednesday, let's talk about our first topic. Whither Wednesday, right? So Steve Jeppy reached out to me, and he said, "Look, Dan, I'm so busy back in the comeback on my whirlwind tour of comic shops and promoting the industry. I don't have time to come into the show, but I'm a regular watcher." And he's been super excited and wanted me to show some clips that he talked about at a retailer conference in 2018. Okay. And so, man, it was an hour-long speech. and Jeppy was not going off of a telephone. So he was all over the place, but told really compelling, interesting stories, kind of like in different ways. I put together a few clips of that, and I want us to take a look at that. But first, I just want to I want to go around the table while I set that clip up, and I want to talk about Wednesday for a second, right? Wednesday, on the one hand, is a brand or part of the branding of comic shops and New Comic Book Day and everything else. It's part of the culture. So there's a huge value in that to some. But others would say, man, our culture our pool is so small that branding really doesn't matter much. We should be trying to expand more into a wider world of pop culture, get in line with release dates in other segments of the entertainment industry. I want to hear what Cliff Biggers has to say first about street dates in general, Wednesdays specifically, and the recent switcheroo with DC regarding Tuesday street dates for comics.
I'm a big advocate of Wednesdays. I feel like we've had Wednesdays as Comics Day for many years now. Customers are used to thinking of that. We are not set up, most comic shops are not set up to process books on Tuesday and have them out for sale on Tuesday. And the only real distributor in the business, Diamond Comics, is not set up to give us those books any earlier than Tuesday on a regular basis. So from that, I think we really need to stick to Wednesday. I also think that it's an established day as far as our customers are concerned. A lot of our customers say they like Wednesday because it breaks the week. You have a couple of days before the comics come in, then you have the big high point with the comics, and then you have the move towards the weekend. It's a good midweek high point for them.
All right, Adam, give me your thoughts on Wednesday in general, man. What does it mean to this industry?
Well, Wednesday has been with us for a while, and finally getting Tuesday delivery was a huge deal for most comic book retailers. And being able to have some time to set up the books, all of that gave a lot to the stores. At the time, I was running a store, and I remember what a big deal that was. I think, however, we do have that weekly holiday of Wednesday, but that can be adjusted and has been adjusted. I mean, it's different in many other different forms of media, and I understand DC wanting to bring all of them together so they can focus their marketing and advertising on this one particular day. I do think that has a lot of merit. So maybe this is time to tinker. And I'm not saying completely change, but tinkering I think is valuable.
Okay, Jesse, I don't know too much about your operation. Tell me how Wednesday factors into your comic selling business.
Well, we stopped carrying new issues about 2 years ago. We went full line back issues. And when we left Diamond, our bills every week were 8,000 to 10,000, and we had 450 plus box holders. And when we made the decision to just drop in and sell customers 7 days a week, and really had that focus of what the customer needs today, and so Wednesdays to us just became a normal day. Now, I will tell you, the customers that shop with us on new issues on Wednesday now shop with us 3-4 times a week, whether it being online, coming in to go through our dollar bins. Now, 3 weeks ago, we did start carrying DC Comics, and those DC Comics every Tuesday we are selling out by the end of the night. So again, we're a small operation when it comes to new issues, 70, 80 DC Comics on Tuesday, out the door. We're ready to sell comics tomorrow.
Very interesting. Heidi, what's your thoughts on this, man? You've covered this industry for a long time. You've been around probably. I don't know if you were covering back when I was a kid. They had two new comic book days a week, right? So give me your thoughts on that in general and street dates and Wednesday.
Yeah, well, I do listen. I do understand the Wednesday warrior, the Wednesday tradition, the Wednesday community, and that is very important. And Cliff is right that there's something very valuable about it, and we certainly don't want to throw it out. As for whether Diamond can ship for Tuesdays, if that's the day that comics went on sale, Diamond would ship for Tuesdays, and everybody would do it for Tuesdays because it used to be Tuesdays and Fridays. I think one of the things that has kind of shaken up the Wednesday world is DC, but not necessarily when they were selling the comics, but it was the street date for the graphic novels, specifically their juvenile graphic novels, which I get the emails all the time, and it's on sale in the comic shops on Wednesday, June 1st, and then on sale in bookstores on Tuesday, June 7th. So, you had this, it has to go to the comic shop first on Wednesdays and wait for a week to be in bookstores, lay down days Tuesday in bookstores. So, I mean, I think that maybe, I think, it is time to tinker, maybe if we could just sell books the same day, Tuesday, and, if comics come on Wednesday, maybe that's okay. I like the 7-day strategy. I think every day should become a book day.
Yeah,
every day, definitely. Every day is definitely comic book day. There's no doubt about that. We're open 7 days a week, 365 days a year. But we're not gaining a day. We're losing 6. All DC has done is taken the extra week jump or 6-day jump that we had over the mainstream market, and they've pulled that away, and they've put us on an even keel by taking 6 days away from us and then trying to tell us, look, we've given you an extra day. Well, yeah, and that they didn't steal 7 days from us. They only stole 6. That's true. The other thing that's interesting, we've been carrying the books. We've been making our DC books available on Tuesday ever since they went with the distributors that they went to when Diamond wasn't shipping. We still sell fewer than 5% of our new releases on Tuesday. Most of our customers want to come in on Wednesday. They want to get their books on Wednesday. Even when DC was the only thing shipping, customers were still, that was the day they were thinking of as comics. That's the day they came in. We were selling on Tuesdays. We still are for the DCs. But that's not the day they want to come in. That's the day they think of. Wednesday's the day they think of. Will they change? Sure. If everyone changed to Tuesday, but I don't think any customer wants to have to come in for these books on one day, these other books on another day. It's not worth the gas, the time, the inconvenience. We need that critical mass factor. If everyone moved to Tuesday and Diamond shipped on Monday, I'd live with that just fine. But all we're doing is diluting the excitement by having a few books on one day, more books on another.
Oh, okay, I'll be honest that I feel like the whole thing about Wednesday, Tuesday, Friday, will their paycheck be there? Are they going to spend it? Are they going to go? I feel like that is a holdover from the old air freight wars days about I got to get my comics out 12 hours before the other guy. Especially if we're talking about graphic novels and trade paperbacks, I feel like that's a lot less of a factor. But wait, let's not take my word for it. Let's talk to the guy who runs Diamond Comics. This is a 2-minute and 45-second supercut. I'm going to start it, and I might just jump around a little bit in it, but I think people might be a little bit surprised what Steve has to say.
Little overworked cliche is sometimes you have to go back to your roots to realize what you're really special about you. And fast forward this thing up to, I opened a bunch of retail stores. Next thing you know, I was doing favors for other retailers by getting them comics and padding them onto my order, just because it helped me get to those minimums and increments that you had to buy back in the crazy days. And we were only doing it because we had to have a reason to get them to come to the store so we could sell them back issues. Now, this sounds very counterintuitive for the guy who owns Diamond Comics that lives off of selling new product. But, and I know how many, this is almost a scary question to ask, but how many people still, I mean, in the literal sense, stock back issues as a full line? Not many hands comparatively, is it? I know the reason, and we, so to speak, benefited because there's so much new product. Retail per square foot is expensive, and it's harder and harder to justify with this mountain of product to carry it all. But these days are coming back. If you've noticed, there's a lot more resurgence into the back issue market. But I'll hold on that thought for a minute.
Oops. And so will I. We'll hold on that for just a second there. And so what we missed, I'm getting a little bit of lagginess here. Whenever I share my screen, it sort of lags a little bit. So I apologize for that. Well, what Steve started out with that I cut out here was a lot of talk about the old days and how they had they had to order in increments of 25. And that's what sort of led him to getting shops together and ganging their orders together. And he sort of fell into this comics distribution game a little bit by accident, because new comics were not his focus. They sold back issues, and the new comics were just there to bring people into the store. So let me just continue and see. Hopefully this plays a little bit faster.
No, and this may sound counterintuitive. Close your ears, Diamond employees. You buy from Diamond, and we love you, and it's can imagine we're not here without you, and it's an obvious statement. But because of the way the industry's evolved, the West's way it's grown from a cottage industry to an industry where you're a retailer more than you are just a comic store. You have to have more products than you ever had before, because your customers have limited time. I keep going back to the time. They have the same amount of time. So if this store has got all these things and you have to go 10 different places, you want to keep them coming to you. So you say, oh, well, they're saying, but now the guy's right there when I get my paycheck, and he's got an email that says, buy my comics and Amazon, I get them 40% off, or I get a discount, they're freight paid to my door. What is really happening to you? What's happening to you has happened to everybody else. The world has become so, and we're all part of it and guilty of it, the world has become so dependent on home entertainment. You can get your groceries delivered to your house.
Guys, this is 2 years before COVID. There's a little bit of prescience in here. This is what was interesting to me. This is way before any kind of crisis. Steve is identifying the desire to stay home is a secular trend in our society, right, going on right now. And now he's going to wrap it. He's going to drive it home right here.
Here goes back with the counterintuitive for Diamond. Hold your ears. Wednesday is comic book day. And let's say Wednesday is a light week. Don't hit the panic button and say, okay, I'll see you next week. Don't make them think that everything revolves around Wednesday. Give them reasons to come in all the time, whether it's something you buy from Diamond or something you buy elsewhere. But you've got to keep them feeling dependent on that experience that only you can provide.
Oh, man, the last time I remember a speech about keeping people dependent from a dude in Baltimore, I was watching The Wire, and it was Stringer Bell. So Steve here has identified, oh, I've got you guys all muted. I'm sorry. There was some feedback coming in from somebody's microphone. So I want to hear some comments on what you just said. I reached out to Steve because he dropped a couple of hints on this show, on his earlier streams, that Diamond wanted to get into the back issue biz. I asked him for a comment, and his comment was too early to say anything. So Heidi, what do you think about that?
So, well, I mean, you know, the bottom line, I keep saying this, is like, you know, comics shut down and we couldn't get periodicals, but we could get graphic novels. I mean, everybody was on the show the first time saying, when all the publishers came on, they were like, you know, oh yeah, you know, Diamond stopped shipping our periodicals, but hey, you know, luckily Penguin Random House was shipping out my graphic novels. So, you know, I mean, Steve was, yeah, I mean, he had sort of caught on to the kink of the hose, you know, that the small part of the hose there. You know, that's what we're really all dealing with now. I mean, it is, I'm, you know, every year I run a story called Is the Pamphlet Doomed? And I present all the facts that it might be doomed, but, you know, I don't really want it to go away. I just want people to understand that it's not the lifeblood. It's just a format. It's not the format for the comics industry. And I think most people know that. So,
okay, fair enough. Adam, what are your thoughts on this? Was Steve like presaging what's happening? Was he looking out and seeing, well, where is this coming from? Why is he advocating against focusing on the thing that his business is all about?
Well, I think that what Steve was saying is we need stronger stores, and the stores that are the strongest are the ones that are focusing on their strengths and not just the strengths of what's being handed to them. So if they're controlling their cost of goods by buying and selling collectibles, like Chuck has said on this store, on this show, you're able to do that. Those that are focusing more on events are able to do that. Those that are focusing more on being a bartender in a giant library of graphic novels are able to do that. But it's really what Steve is focusing on is the stores finding their strength and leaning into that. Jesse has done exactly the same thing. So these stores really do The reason that they are really so hard to kill is that because they're all so individual. I think that's what he's leaning into.
I'm super excited to talk to Jess about this. First, I want to ask Cliff a specific question about his store and Wednesday. I don't know. I have a feeling you might know this off the top of your head, but you might not. I don't want to put you on the spot, but what kind of percentage of sales are you talking on your store on Wednesdays? Like compared to, say, what an average day might be? What does a Wednesday look like at Dr. No's? Oh, I'm sorry, Cliff. Sorry. I'm sorry. You're muted. Go ahead. Sorry.
Okay. Wednesday is about 2.5 to 3 times an average day. It is not the big day it used to be because we have some customers who prefer to come in on other days depending on their work schedules. But Wednesday is a very solid day for comics community. It's where a lot of people like to come in and cross paths with other comics friends that they've met through the store, and they love to talk about comics.
I'm sorry, Cliff. You're breaking up.
The interest in comic books.
I'm sorry, Cliff. You broke up there quite a bit. We missed a little bit there. But I'm going to go to Jesse real quick. Jesse,
Sure, that's fine.
Jesse. So, okay, were you at this summit? Were you listening to Steve? Were you like, all right, Steve, you're on, buddy. I'm out of here, because it seems like 2 years ago you made the decision to do what Steve is saying. So tell me about that.
Yeah, we actually 2 years ago, I was in a meeting with Jen King. We were just sitting in a room and we were talking about what would happen if we didn't have new issues. How would we survive? And I said, well, listen, one of the big thing is you sell back issues, and we have tons of back issues, thousands of long boxes we haven't gone through. So we created Comic Book Shopping Network, which was geared towards orphan customers that really didn't have stores in their city. And how would we get those customers comics? And what happened was it started to dwarf into us helping store customers that actually had stores in their city for a back issue. So it's evolved to the point that there's, at the end of the day, you're branding and you're creating platforms and you're pivoting all the time. So I think the customer base right now is just saying, listen, I want comics. I need comics. And one of the biggest things I tell people when you go into the live shows that we do, I'm going on my 500 show in 2 days, is a 21-year-old, everything is new to them. And so that's a big advantage for back issues for a customer.
Great segue into, this is kind of dovetails right into our topic about, I'm sorry, not Wednesday, back issues to the future, right? Is Chuck Rosansky came in here, guys, and he said, you're looking at it wrong. The past 20 years, the new stores have kind of been missing the boat, man. And I was one of those stores. I opened in 2001. I went in, and I'm going to mute a couple mics. We're getting some noise. I came in, and conventional wisdom sort of at the time was back issues take up too much space, and they are not a big enough percentage of your revenue to make it worthwhile. And I sort of bought into that. That made a lot of sense to me from a math kind of nuts and bolts perspective. But Cliff is shaking his head because Cliff is a clever guy. And Cliff knows that there's a lot more to what you make out of a business than your revenue. Your gross revenue is really only one part of the picture, right? It's all about your net revenue. And you don't have control over your profit margin when you're dealing in new product with a suggested retail price. Okay. So Cliff, maybe I just stole your thunder on that one. Let's see if your audio is working better. Tell me your thinking on that.
I'm hoping it is. I can tell you what my internet connection is challenged because landscapers next door cut the fiber optic line this afternoon.
Oh no!
I've had to go back to old copper line for 3 days. So that's where our problem's coming in. But yes, the profit margin on back issues is significantly better than the profit margin on new comics. And back issues are something, we have back issues 7 days a week. We're processing new back issues as they come in. It's a constant flow of new material. We have a box that we on the counter that we devote to recent arrivals. We display high dollar value recent arrivals on a shelf behind the sales counter. Everything we're doing is targeted to making people realize that we get in new back issues more frequently than we get in new newly published comics. It's a big part of the business, and it's a continually growing part. It is up to 15 to 20% of the dollar value of our total sales within the comics component of our business is from back issues now, and it continues to grow.
Okay, and I mean the other objection many had to it is that, okay, sure, Dan, we can buy stuff cheap and sell it expensive, but man, there's cost of storage, there's cost of labor, there's cost of processing this stuff. Man, to process a long box full of hundreds of books might take a long time, and only maybe a few of those books might ever even sell for the time it takes to grade and price and push. Jesse, you're shaking your head, so tell me where I'm wrong. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm doing it again. Jesse, say it again.
So right now, we just bought 790 books this morning from a comic book store in their dollar bins. Tonight, right after this show, I will go live and we will sell all 790 books. So you're able to, at the end of the day, what's business? Turn rate, sell-throughs, bottom lines. That's what business is about. And so I know that if I can sell those books tonight after this show, tomorrow, guess what? I'm going to go buy some more. Because why? Because my profit margins are so high, my turn rates are so high, and I've created a customer base around the world that it doesn't matter what time I go on, they're ready to buy that product.
Those turnover rates are key, right? And it's all about packaging and the flexibility. Sure, you might have junk that's unsellable, that's not worth grading, but you can put those into bargain packs and blow them out and whatever. Adam, what are you telling your clients? Adam is a consultant. Anybody can hire Adam, and he'll come in there and he'll give you expert advice on whatever you ask him about. Somehow he is an expert on anything you might ask him about regarding comics.
Well, I'm an expert because I talk to smart people and I write down what they say and I pass it off as my own. So one of the things that they have said to me is that you need to watch your profit per square foot. We're talking about retail space, and so retail space is really expensive. Back issues are tough because they don't sell quite as much as new comics in the same square footage, but you do have an increased profit. So you're always balancing those two things out. It's profit per square foot, not just sales per square foot, as it would be in almost any other retail environment. That said, yes, back issues incredibly important. Are they Back to the Future? Absolutely. I think that they're also an incredibly great investment. I mean, especially in this time when the stock market is so fluctuating so wildly, and you can buy a golden age book and it's going to go up in value. All of that said, none of that factors in the fact that these entertainment companies are spending literally millions of dollars, tens of millions of dollars promoting this product that's in Cliff's store, that's in Jesse's store. And if we're not using new issues, then we're completely losing the value of that marketing. And so as a result of all of that, none of it should be cut out.
Wait a minute. I'm sorry. I got to stop you for what marketing are we talking about?
Okay. Well, I'm sorry. Are you not seeing the fact that comics are the best-selling graphic novels in bookstores across the entire trade? Comics are doing really well. Okay, graphic novels are doing incredibly well. I'm seeing the fact that you're not seeing the marketing doesn't mean the marketing is not there. It just means the marketing is not targeted to you, and it's not. And what I'm saying is that there is something pushing the value of these books. It may not be go to your local comic shop, because that's a really hard thing to say, right? The comic shop locator service is, I hate to say it, I love the guys at Diamond, but it's fairly useless. It became useless the minute we had Google, right? So it's really hard to say go to your local comic shop. I can say go to Cliff's because he's got the thing that I have to sell, but how do I say that to everybody? It becomes easier for the big companies to say go to Amazon, which is why we struggle with this all the time. But the marketing is being spent, right? Those dollars are being spent, and that value can be going into the shops, but it only can be going to the shops when they're selling new product.
I want to hear from Heidi real quick, and then I want to bring Cliff in for a second. Heidi, I know you don't have a row to hoe in the back issue biz, or do you? Let me ask you this. Wait a minute, Heidi. Do you read back issue comics? Like, do you collect individual comic issues or read them? Oh, wait. You're muted again.
You got to unmute me because I'm raring to go on this one. I can't believe what I'm hearing. My mind is spinning. I've been in quarantine for 10 weeks and my mind is spinning like back issues, like people are buying back issues to read them. Wow, this is blowing my mind. When they could buy graphic novels easily off of Amazon. And listen, I know Chuck Rosansky very well. I know he has an incredible business. Jesse with his business, obviously. Yes, people are buying these back issues. I mean, I can't believe there is not a speculative value to this. I don't know. I don't know. People are buying these to read or to speculate. I'd love to hear from Cliff and Jesse, why they're buying these back issues. But the great news, let me just say, the great news for me is that I'm cleaning out my storage unit. So, whoever the highest bidder, you come on down. I have about 50 boxes full of back issues. And, you break them, you bought them, come and get them, boys. Come and get them.
I'm in, Heidi. I'm in. I actually have just started getting the effect of people mailing me free comic books now because they watch the show. And that, you know what, that reminds me, I've got to pull this moment. If you want to be a guest on Comic Book News with Dan Shaheen, you want to have your books reviewed, man, send an email to cbn@danshaheen.com. It's that easy. I want to talk to you. You make comics, you got comics, send them to me. I'll read them, I'll review them, I'll talk about them, I'll talk to you.
Also contribute highly to the super chats. That also
helps.
That helps.
Big donations to super chats.
No, do we got super chat? Oh, we got a super chat. We got multiple super chats. I'm sorry.
Wow.
Oh my gosh. Pay Manifesto spent $2 to say nothing.
I agree.
Sign of the times.
Oh my gosh. I think that's $2 well spent. So I'm gonna give this person a break and let him get in for $2 too. Love Dr. No's comic, Cliff's $1 comics. Yet another outlet for his inventory that he owns, as Chuck would say. Guys, the next super chat that we show that we interrupt this important program for is going to have to be more than $2. Sorry to say. Okay. Cliff, tell me about back issues. You got fans here chiming in. So tell me what's up.
Well, I think back issues are important at all price points. We move a tremendous number of $1 comics. We move a tremendous number of $5 comics. When you're buying $5 comics, that pricing is as low as $2 with quantity. Then we have individually priced back issues. We move some of everything. And to answer Heidi's questions, a lot of people buy those books to read them. They are buying back issues that haven't been collected. They're buying back issues of collections that are out of print right now. They love reading them. The higher value books, the New Mutants 98, the Spider-Man 300, the Silver Age, that stuff is being bought from people who want to own the book. There's a speculative value, but there's also that sense of possession. I now have something that is significant to me and to other people, and I own it. Even if I'm only going to read the reprint of it, I still own the original book. Yeah. But I think back issues are important.
That was the point I wanted to make, because there's a lot of comics out there that you just can't get in trade paperback, Heidi. And there's, like this, California comics.
Oh, yes. Believe me, and I have them in my storage unit. Trust me, I know I have them. And
so there's also formats and differences in formats. Like, given the choice, I go back sometimes. I love a great collected. Nobody loves trades and graphic novels more than me, but sometimes the original issues, the back matter, the letters pages, the inner covers, and stuff that don't get collected. I'm really into that stuff.
And let me point out one other problem. I've got a customer, loves Fantastic Four. He'd been picking up Marvel Masterworks to read the FF reprints. Fantastic Four, the Marvel Masterworks Volume 14 of Fantastic Four has been out of print. The cheapest price he could find for that was about $190 for that particular book. He bought all the issues that were reprinted in that book from my store for about $30. He got good reading copies, not mint copies, but he got reading copies for about $30. He said, I got the fun of owning those books from the early mid-70s, and I spent a lot less than buying that collected edition. So,
and they had the better coloring. They had the good coloring too. So
yes, and
that's actually a great point, Heidi, is that the coloring, man, sometimes they put out these new editions, they spend all this time, they take it and they go, oh man, the only thing that stunk about those old comics was the flat coloring. We better gloss it up and put some gradients in there. And they just they put the wrong paper stock with the wrong kind of coloring. Blech. Okay, guys.
And now let me mention that I also collect back issues. I am the guy that many people considers to be the nightmare customer. I get CGC books, I crack them open. I'm just thinking that is shipping protection because I'm not looking to resell my personal books. I'm looking to open those books up. So I have gotten very good at knowing exactly where to hit with that hammer and where to put that screwdriver to crack those cases open right away.
Right.
I love, yeah, Jesse, bring us home on this
But
topic.
one of the biggest thing about back issues, and I have it right behind me. This is my very first comic I got in January 25th, 1982. Standing in front of a comic book store, Avengers 129. I've read this 1,000 times. My job is to listen to customers and inspire them to buy more comics. And sometimes that's comic fans that come in and say, tell me about Team America. So I guess the point of back issues is there's something for everyone. You just got to find what that is and give them, the happiest customer in the world is a customer who walks out with a bag full of comics, right?
You said it. You said it, Jesse. It's all about keeping the fans happy. And well, speaking of that, that brings us right into our next topic. Let's talk about the Snyder Cut and fandom. Is the Snyder Cut a love letter to fans, or is it a white flag of surrender to toxic fandom? Oh my gosh, what a thing to say. But wait, before we talk about it, let's watch the video. All right. This is the trailer. This is the messaging that Warner Brothers and DC want to send out about the release of the Snyder Cut. And just very quickly, Heidi, we're talking about your story. Could you just tell us what the Snyder Cut is? Just give us a real quick recap of what that means.
So there was a screening. Zack Snyder, of course, made Man of Steel, and then he made Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice, and then he started work on Justice League, the culmination of this Snyderverse. And he shot it, and then there was a time when they sat down to look at the rough cut in the studio at Warner Brothers with a bunch of high-level folk in the room, other screenwriters, other filmmakers, executives, and he, it's a traditional part of the movie-making process where you just bring in just all the crap you got, and perhaps some of it is just, storyboard form, whatever. Just show them what you got, and he did. And it was about 2.5 hours. It was not finished. It did not have special effects. It did not have music, anything. It was just a very, 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 very rough cut. And then the Warner Brothers executives were so horrified by what they saw that they immediately tried to get Joss Whedon to do the movie. So actually, I'm misstating. There was a lot of other things involved, including tragedy and Snyder's family.
Right. We don't want to discount that for sure.
But they were alarmed. They were very alarmed. Executives were very alarmed by what they saw that day.
Well, and let's also put it in the context. They had released 2 previous movies that led directly to this, directed by Snyder, the Superman movie, whichever one that was, Man of Steel, and then the Superman v Batman, where they took all the ultimate moments of Superman and Batman that it took 40, 50 years of comics, and they just blew the load on the screen and put all that stuff out right in the beginning and sort of led into what we see. Now, okay, people are saying they fell in love with Joss Whedon and the Avengers. They say, well, you got to be funny like that. We want to make $1 billion like Avengers. So they stepped on his vision before it could be completed, and it's rumored that it's been out there. Fans are wanting it, and let's just see how they've decided to announce that, and then we'll bring the panel in and talk about it. Okay, let's check this out.
Here we go. 3, 2, 1, play.
Hey guys, thought I might crash your little watch party.
I have a question that is the mother of all our questions as a fandom. When will you release the Snyder Cut?
There it is.
Yes.
There it is. It's a hard question. I don't know. What do you think, Henry?
I reckon you should show it.
We're doing it. So get ready.
Oh my God.
Okay, so forgive a guy who went to school for broadcasting and is trained in the semiotics of video and media, okay? but I'm going to look at this thing and I'm going to say, what are they trying to do here? It is emotionally manipulative in both its music and its selection of the people that were chosen to participate in this. We've got Henry Cavill flashing his muscles. There was no reason he didn't have to have sleeves on, but all right, whatever.
You work as hard as he does, you're going to wear a tank
come on.
top.
I mean, what's the point of having Henry?
You do not shoulder shame Henry Cavill. No. No.
Okay, you're right.
All right.
So anyway, they pump it up. There's emotional music. There's people on the verge of tears. We've been waiting for the Zack Snyder Justice League cut since I don't know how long. All right. Heidi wrote a story about this, and she pointed to another story that I think was from Forbes that talked about this. Are they capitulating to toxic fandom, or are they taking the advice of the people who know these characters the best to identify that there was something wrong going on? We started with Heidi. We'll end with her thoughts on it. Let's start with General Zod. Well, your feelings?
I don't think there is anything such a thing as toxic fandom. I think there are definitely toxic people within fandom, and those people tend to want to isolate out other people who are also fans. But I don't think fandoms can be toxic. They can be vocal, they can be loud, they can be energetic. Those are all things that the Warner Brothers takes advantage of. So is it toxic? Is it capitulating? I think they're using an opportunity to roll out like a movie that maybe didn't do all that great and like get everybody excited about it. We're all home watching movies.
Okay.
It's actually kind of brilliant.
Okay. Jesse James, I'm going to unmute you and I'm going to ask your thoughts on this.
Okay, just real quick on my part, controversy sells. You control the mob, you win. I mean, that's basically what it comes down to on my part.
So what do you mean? But what do you mean by that? I don't understand. So you're saying they're using
if you control the narrative, I think as you start to control that narrative, you can actually get your fans really do anything in that type of universe. That's not really my expertise, but I just know by watching just that little thing, there's this control factor of what we want you to see, and that's what we're then bring out to you, but we're then do it in our way, shape, or form.
Interesting. Cliff Biggers, what are your thoughts on this issue?
Yeah. The studios have had over a 50-year tradition of finding a way to put new material into a film or a television series and reissue it and sell that product again. I think it's brilliant to do it. Let's face it, there's no interest in buying more copies of the Joss Whedon Justice League. Everyone who wanted it has it. If they just put that on HBO Max, who's going to care? But by announcing we've got a different version of the film, it's just like when the network showed Aliens and they added 10 minutes of extra footage that didn't really add anything to the story, but we all watched ABC TV to see what those 10 minutes were. Or when they re-edited The Godfather in chronological order, putting the films together chronologically, and we wanted to see, is this a train wreck or is this brilliant? We don't know.
I'm gonna pause you on that one, Cliff, because this is my show, and the Godfather saga was awesome. I love watching it that way. They had,
and I didn't say that's fine, and it doesn't hurt because both versions still exist. It's like when someone asked Stephen King how he felt about The Shining, the film, and what they did to his books. They said they didn't do anything to my books. They're on my shelf just like they always were. The Joss Whedon Justice League hasn't gone away. We just now have a different Justice League so they can make you buy it twice and make you subscribe to the channel to see it. And they can manipulate carefully chosen people in a viewing audience to ask just the right questions that have all been set up to make it look like everyone cares. And the simple truth is the number of hardcore fans who are going to watch this, it's going to be the tiniest blip in the viewership of HBO Max. HBO Max needs the excitement of the news talk, and the idea that they have done a totally new cut of a big budget film makes some people curious. Maybe I subscribe to this to see what else they're going to do.
Yeah, Heidi, this was your article. Oh, I read your article. Well, I just want to talk about it for a sec, and I had a hard time getting exactly what your take was. Like, I'm trying to understand how you feel. If you feel, is it a white flag or is it a love letter?
Well, I mean, it's both. It's everything, isn't it? I mean, like everything exists all at once now. Everybody has an opinion. And I mean, that's what we're really talking about. I mean, I may agree with Adam, fandom is a great thing, but, people can be toxic and horrible about it. And now we have a place where horrible voices are put on the exact same platform as voices that we would consider more mainstream. So, that's really what it is. And we in the media ennoble it. I mean, I've done many, many, many tests where you tell good news and nobody shares it. Give it a salacious headline and everybody shares it. I mean, I do this all the time, and I point it out all the time. So it's like who's going to play the game? I mean, Cliff is absolutely right. Of course, it's a game. And I mean, hey, I'm all for Henry Cavill's. Whatever he wants to wear or not wear, I'm fine with that. Okay. By the way, the guy has very few books behind him. Did you notice? Very, very few books. Just saying. Hey, but quite a few articles about this, and my own pointed out that, Richard Donner, the beloved director of Superman, starring Christopher Reeve, the most beloved superhero movie of all time, the one that all other superhero movies aspire to be. When he made Superman 2, ran into the same thing, studio interference. They took the cut away from him and had Richard Lester come in and finish the movie, okay? And they actually did release the Donner cut. Now, I haven't followed that. I think that came out 2005, 6, 7, something like that, 10, 13 years ago. I didn't actually follow that in minute detail. I don't know how much of the footage they had, if it was a recut, whatever. Obviously, they didn't go back and reshoot it. But, like absolutely, this is just something that happens. Now, this extraordinary, uncertain times we live in have made the Snyder cut, this cause to love. Because I just, did you people really love Batman v Superman that much? That movie was hated. I mean, it was.
Yes, you are correct.
Like,
well, it depends who you ask. If he's watching right now, we could get Contrarian and Chief Larry Young in here, and he would tell you that he loved it, and it's an underrated masterpiece. And Snyder
tell you a lot of things.
Yes, but Larry's mother's name is Martha, so that doesn't count.
By the way, I just wanted, before you, anybody, I'm actually a huge Zack Snyder fan. I actually really enjoy his movies. I liked Man of Steel a lot. 300, Dawn of the Dead. I'm actually a fan of his movie making. I thought Batman v Superman was misguided in its storytelling, but a beautifully shot movie. I mean, I think I call him the Alex Ross of directors. He gives superheroes a really super and heroic look. I'm actually a fan of his.
Visually, I would concur that the guy's very talented.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%.
And a super fan of comics, obviously, to the point of slavish worship to some degree. But Watchmen, garbage. That's my final word. So, we're going to move on to our next topic. We're going to go on. We're going to go to viewer comments, because I'm sure I see 100 unlooked at viewer comments sitting right there. So guys, I am going to turn on your ability to see the comments, and you guys can start looking to see if you see any that are particularly aimed at you that you want to answer, and you can tell me that, and we'll bring a few up, man. Let's see what we got going on here. Okay, guys, let me bring up the banner. I'm sorry. Comments. And guys, please hit us with what you got. What do you got to say about toxic fandom or the Snyder cut? What do you got to say about all that stuff? Oh, and we forgot one topic. I actually totally forgot we were going to add in a new topic. So I'm going to leave the comments open, and I'm going to pull up this banner, and we'll talk about our very last topic, which is just breaking news today. Right before the show, Heidi goes, "Hey, did you hear about the Marvel Linewide cuts?" Okay, so Marvel has decided to cut about 2/3 of the comics that were scheduled to ship. We don't know if they're going to reschedule them, if they're just moving them out. A certain percentage of them went and have been announced as digital only or digital first, meaning they will be printed, but only in trade paperback form and might never come out in pamphlet format. that is kind of a sea change. It's kind of a really important thing. So I'm sorry I forgot to bring it. I'm going to turn off the viewer comment thing here, and we're going to talk about Marvel line-wide cuts. So Heidi, why don't you give us just the brief statement about like what that article was about and why you.
What my managing editor, Joe Grunenwald, went. He writes about Marvel every month, and every week actually, and he just went and did a statistical analysis of what books had been announced, what books had come out, what books were coming out digital first, what books weren't coming out at all. And the bottom line was that it was about through the next 3 months, it's about 2/3. It's about 100 titles coming out over the next 3 months, which is in a normal month. Marvel used to put out 100 titles. So,
okay.
I mean, this is alarming, I guess, but it's also, we live in alarming times. So, and I think you've had many people here on Comic Book News talking about how we don't want to flood the market, glut the market with product that hasn't been shipped. So I think Marvel's actually being very, very cautious and very considerate. And, they're taking into account the situation.
Jesse, what's your take on this? I mean, you're not buying new comics, so this really doesn't affect you too much one way or another, or does it? Tell me what you think about this.
It actually does. I talked about 7 stores today that are nervous that they're not getting enough books in to actually support their store every week. And not getting Marvel and getting less might hurt them some. I always say the B word, which is budgets. In the comic book industry, most stores don't know how to budget. If they were taught, they would learn, hey, budget. But right now, when you look at what came out today, how are people paying their rent? Or let's say Wednesday, how are they paying their rent with that little amount of books coming out? So Marvel, in 2 ways, doing a great job, giving some stores some relief as far as their budgets go. But on the flip end, they need those books. They need those customers come in, and those $20 pull boxes need to be $30, $35.
Yeah. Okay. So let's hear from a guy with skin in the game. Cliff, what do you think about it?
Well, first, every time I think about something like this, I have to go back to one of the most frequently stated phrases from one of the most brilliant women who ever worked in comics, Carol Kalish, who reminded us all again and again and again, every book is somebody's favorite. And the part of the problem is I was an advocate of cutting about 20%, the bottom 20% of the line, for about 2 months, holding it off, not cutting it entirely. The problem is when you go digital only, even with some of those lower titles, if you go digital only, you've got customers who've now invested 2/3 or 3/4 into a story that they can't get without now rebuying the same material they've got. I think that's a horrible slap in the face to those people for whom those were their favorite books. And what I really wish Marvel would reconsider is, when those trade paperbacks come out, at least offer those customers the option of bringing in the issues they bought to return them to the store for X amount of credit, and let us do strip returns on those books so that the customers don't feel like Marvel has taken advantage of them by making them pay $15 or $17 or $20 for a trade paperback for which they needed 1 or maybe 2 issues. But I also do agree we need more books out there, because every book is somebody's favorite. If we've only got 100, I have 120 facings that came in this week in my store. Out of that 120 facings, I don't expect any customer to buy all 120. I expect customers to pick their favorites out of that list. There aren't enough books for enough people to find enough favorites to make them feel like they got a great comics week.
Okay, Adam, is this overdue in the long run? COVID aside, business slowdown aside, is Marvel just putting out too many titles in general? I mean, I looked at this list, and a lot of this stuff, I did a little bit of analysis we'll talk about in a second. Tell me, Adam, tell me your thinking. Oh, sorry, you're muted, Adam. You muted yourself, though. This time it's not my fault.
I did. I was being considerate. This whole thing starts and ends with COVID. It really does. And it's, I mean, Tale of Two Cities, right? DC says, we're not laying anybody off. Nobody gets furloughed. Everybody gets, what we are going to do is we're going to start distributing through other means so that we can continue revenue, right? So we can keep people on salary, so we can keep making these books and keep them coming into your shops. They got a lot of feedback on that, let's say, right? Marvel, people were cut people were furloughed. People did go home. They did, and they had to cut somewhere. So they cut back the number of titles. 2 months of books not going out. So you take 2 months and then you take a full month and you spread that over 3 months. I mean, that's a third and a third and a third. That's how that works. I mean, they're going to scale back up because it's always been their strategy to keep their market share. It's going. They're not going to cut the number of titles because this is not who Marvel is. So this all just begins and ends with COVID.
All right, guys.
4 months from now, everything goes back to the same way it was.
Okay, let's look at this list for a second here. And I looked at the titles, okay? And then I went over to our buddy John Jackson Miller, who's watching right now. I went over to his site just for grins. Let's look up on Comicron.com, by the way, the only and best way to look at sales figures in the comics industry. I went and looked at the most recent selling issue of all of these series. So, for instance, if we started with Arrow, number 10 and 11 that were cut, the most recent issue was number 8, okay? And that clocked in at a whopping 6,296 copies selling in the direct market. Now, if I looked at all of these, I did some analysis on the numbers here. And these orange ones here are ones that are more than one standard deviation away from the average. Okay, so if they were more than one, I took those out. And then I just ran some numbers on these other ones. So these are the outliers, the orange ones. These are books that sell okay, I guess. 28,000, 42,000, 33,000. That's Conan, Star Wars, Avengers, right? These are books you would expect to sell really well. And just for context, what's the best-selling X-Men books that same month? X-Men or Marvel book, 76,000 and 96,000. It's the same comic, 2 different issues. Big drop between the 2 issues there. But even that is not a huge number, guys. These numbers are small. So when I remove those outlying numbers, the average of these books that was being dropped is selling 15,868 copies. All right. So what I'm saying is, I think besides those 3 big titles, this is mostly stuff that was super marginal anyway. And given this giant hit to the industry, they are not profitable to print these comics. Commentary.
I don't know about that.
Cliff, tell me why.
Well, because there is a price break that comes with total volume.
Uh-oh. Oh, man.
This copper wire finally gave up.
I got the special smart filter going on that when somebody's about to say something smart, it cuts out.
But print with multiple units. If you
okay. So Cliff is going to talk about economies of scale and printing units, whether it's profitable or not.
And he's right. Is what I think what Cliff is trying to say is that the margin on these books is massive for people the size of Marvel and DC, and really even the 10, the 8
material
below
for
them on
those
the right.
presses profitable, creating.
Sorry, guys.
But yeah, he's not wrong. Is that if you try and look at those numbers, you don't know what the A&E costs are. You don't know what art and editorial are, right? So and you don't know how they're factoring in trade paperbacks or what the editors are saying. I can tell you one thing though. Ike is never going to greenlight a book that isn't going to make him money. So if the fact they were on that list to begin with means they were making money.
Okay, interesting that you say that because I looked at that. And I looked at the trade paperback of Arrow. The number 1 trade paperback was also sold that month, and it looks like 686 copies.
You're looking at books, or you're looking at Comicron?
Comicron. Although that might have been reorders, right? And you're right. It ignores the book trade altogether. And that's the missing piece of the picture for many people. They go, how does Magnificent Miss Marvel, why does that keep coming back and getting reprinted when I'm looking at the numbers here and they're small? But the thing that I really noticed, though, with that title in particular, there were multiple reorders charting of the previous issues in that same month. And that was not the case for all books, which tells me the initial orders were way under and people were asking for it and it was getting reordered. So what you say is wise, Adam. These Comicron numbers are only one piece of the picture, and the issues themselves are even a tiny piece. Something might be marginal in periodical format, but man, every library in the country loves it and wants it, and it's selling huge in trade.
It's also not factoring in what they're making off of licensing for international. That can be huge. Those can be massive numbers. It's not factoring in a lot. It obviously not factoring in digital. It's not factoring in a ton of ways that these things create revenue. So I love the numbers that John puts together, and I use them a lot in my work, but they're not the full story. They're just a sliver of it.
Okay. Heidi, what do you think though? Are we overdue for some cuts to Marvel's line? You know, there's a lot of talk about glutting the shelves and blocking out the product.
Absolutely. And, you know, Brian Hibbs, who's been on this show and who writes a column for my site, The Beat, has often called for Marvel to cut down on the number of titles it puts out every month. You know, I think that's one of his constant calls. So, you know, be careful what you wish for. But, you know, I think, you know, this is what we're going through is a completely unforeseen, unexpected, unknown event. And that is hitting our industry and all industries. But I always say I'm just going to stick with analyzing my industry because I got to, you know, put the oxygen mask on myself before I help others. And there were some problems in the industry before COVID-19 hit. And some of them have been highlighted or, you know, thrown into sharp relief by having a global pandemic. And everyone is trying. You know, I think this is kind of people trying what they secretly wanted to do. You know, DC wanted to not be exclusive with Diamond and to try releasing things on Tuesday. So they're giving it a shot, you know. Maybe Marvel did want to, you know, produce their line. I mean, they probably didn't. I got to be honest. I don't think they did. But, you know, I mean, I'm hearing that from some of my sources. It's just temporary. They're just doing it so we can ease back into the flow of things and not overburden stores. Although, as I think Jesse pointed out, they did get gigantic discounts on some of these books as well. So, you know, Marvel's done a lot. Marvel gets criticized, rightly so, for a lot of things, but they have been trying very hard to do their part to not sink the comic book industry and sink comic shops. So, you know, I think we will see a return to a normalcy. But
well, wait a second. Before you predict anything, you're teeing us up right now, Heidi, for our next segment, which is predictions. This is one of my favorite parts, okay? We're going to go around the horn, and everybody's going to predict something, right? What's it going to be about? What's going to happen? What's next? Does it have to be about the Snyder Cut? Does it have to be about something we talked about? No, it could be about anything, but please try and make it interesting. Try and make it specific. And the one thing I'm going to ask you do not predict is comics are going to be okay. We know that, all right? Comics are going to be okay, all right, guys? There's going to be comics tomorrow no matter what. If I got to scrawl them on the wall, on my whiteboard wall over here, we're going to have comics. So let's get something specific. We're going to start with a guy who always thinks on his feet and has something prepared for the situation. Who else? General Zod. Hip us to it. What's going on, Adam? What's going
on? Comics retailers' lives are going to get more complicated. They're going to have more sources. They're going to be having to diversify more. And they're going to have to learn to look at even more titles than they are now. I think variants are going to go away a little bit, but I also think exclusives are going to start doing a lot better. I think that you're seeing that with Jesse, what he talked about earlier. And I think that we're going to see some really interesting tech solutions step up to try and clarify some of that complexity. But other than that, you know, comics are going to be fine.
All right, Adam, thanks. Stick around for a second. We're going to do predictions, and I'm going to wrap this thing up, and we'll chat for a little bit if you got time.
You bet.
Right, thanks. Cliff Biggers, can you predict the future for us?
I think the future is going to hold fewer comic shops. I do think there's a good chance that at least 10% of the shops out there are not going to survive this. They're not going to get the income and the critical mass they need to recover. I think that is going to ripple through publishers. It's going to hurt those. Some of those print runs are going to go down because there are fewer outlets for it. And we all know that when a store closes, even if there's another store in town, some of those customers just disappear. They don't move somewhere else. We don't understand why, but they just disappear. And that's going to hurt overall sales. I think I think 2021 is also going to be the year for what I consider the midline publishers, the people like Vault, the people like Aftershock who seem to be working to build a connection with retailers, and they're taking a bolder stand and supporting the market than a lot of the big guys are right now.
Okay, great prediction. Thanks, Cliff. Stick around. We'll talk to you soon if you got time. I know it's late where you're at, so talk to you soon anyway. Okay, great. All right. Hey, man, you guys are brand new. What do you think about the comic book news experience so far? You guys having fun? It has been okay so far?
I've had a blast. This is awesome.
Okay, great.
I love to chat and blab, so I stay up late. So pretty much what I do on a normal night.
All right. Well, so here's what I'm going to do to you guys. What I want to do is I want to say I loved you guys. Were awesome on here. I'd like to welcome you back anytime. I hope you'll be open to me inviting you back on the panel. I am going to say we're going to work on Jesse's audio situation a little bit. A little bit of feedback, maybe headphones needed or something like that, but we'll make it work for sure. Because man, Jesse, you got such a great and interesting perspective. It seems like you're a couple years ahead. Like the decisions you made 2 years ago really put you in a position now where you're maybe not suffering as much as you might have. What do you got to say about that before we go? And make a prediction.
Okay. My prediction is orphan customers, or Cliff talked about. Orphan customers are in abundance. When a store closes, those customers should be able to get their comic books, and it should be by the person that is doing live shows across the nation, whatever time of the day. I have 23 stores on my network that start at 9 a.m. and go to 1 a.m. So orphan customers, I think, are the direction of the future. As a store closes, those customers move over to the next store up, basically. So that's kind of my prediction. Orphan customers are our future.
Great, thank you, and thank you for mentioning your store too. There's a link in the description to basically to everybody who's been on the show in some way. But I think I want to change this segment name to Plugs and Predictions, because it should be the final opportunity for you to talk about what you do. And dude, I like what you're doing, Jesse. You're hustling. You're out there working different angles, working new media, selling comics to different people in different ways than it's ever been done before. Dude, that makes you a prime panelist on Comic Book News and a player in the industry. Thanks for joining us. Oops.
What's funny is I talked to Heidi for the last 10 years. This is the first time I've actually met Heidi. So howdy, nice meeting you. So
yeah, isn't it fun to actually get this face-to-face talk with some people, right?
It brings people together. So, it's strange times.
Okay, Jesse, thanks. Stick around. We'll talk to you in a sec.
Thanks, Jesse.
All right, Heidi.
Okay.
You were the last person we brought into this, and man, am I glad. Like, people have been clamoring. We've been trying to hook up you on an interview, maybe talking with Rich Johnston or Milton Greep or some of the other luminaries in the comics journalism industry. I hope you're willing to do that sometime.
Well, like I said, I'm love to talk about industry issues, and so give me a call. I'm I'm not leaving my house much still, so I have about a month left, they say. So.
Well, you were fantastic tonight. We appreciate it. We're going to have you back again and again. Thanks. Stick around. We'll talk to you soon. All right, folks, it's time to wrap this thing up. I'm going to go from predictions into final thoughts mode. All right. So what are the final thoughts? Well, back issues, guys. Man, when I'm thinking about what a store of the future looks like, I know used product is going to factor heavily. I don't actually know if back issues, like a never-ending selection of 1 million back issues like you're seeing here, or like you might see on the floor of Mile High Comics, I don't know if that's in the cards. But one of the things that resonated with what Chuck said was, and with what Adam was talking about profits and percentages of your floor space, right? The thinking from Chuck, his thinking was, we got to get out of the idea of the showcase mall store, the glorious high traffic retail spot for comics, because it just won't work, right? Because if you want to make it work, you're going to need more space. You're going to need to be a destination store. You're going to need to have something that people just can't get at the malls or at the strip malls or wherever. What is that? I don't know yet. We're going to figure it out. I got some really crazy ideas. I'm looking at a miniature golf course in my area that I think could be the ultimate family fun, super fun comic book store idea in the world. I don't know. We're going to talk about it in our series Comic Book 2.0 here on this channel, right? We've got a continuing series where we talk about what the comic shop of the future might look like. And to tell you the truth, the sad truth about that is that this is just my way to do research for opening a new comic book store and get the best and brightest minds in all parts of this industry weighing in on my business plan. It's pure selfishness. I don't really care about anyone else. I'm just kidding. I care about all of you. I care about comics. I care about this industry. I care about you for watching. Thank you for watching the show. Thank you for subscribing. Thanks for sharing it with your friends. If you tuned in, my last two shows were two of the best, my favorite shows I've ever done. The Jim Rugg interview was a ton of fun, especially if you're from Pittsburgh. I guarantee you will like that show. And man, the interview I did with 7-year-old, almost 7.5-year-old Odin the Creator. Guys, check it out. It's a half-hour episode about a kid who likes comics and YouTube, a friend of the family. We did a stream together on a show. We go behind the scenes. You get a look at the $1 Million Comics cam. You get a look at all the special effects and the whatnot. The open source software tool chain that I use to produce all these amazing graphics in this show. Oh, man, it's fun if you're into that kind of stuff, which not too many people are. Oh, well. Anyway, I'm having a ton of fun doing this goofy stuff. I thank you for watching. I thank you for supporting comic shops back in the comeback and making sure, in a nutshell, backing the comeback to me means one thing. It means making comic shops, your local comic shop, your very, very first stop for comics, right? When you think about comics, you got a lot of choices. You go to Amazon, you go to Barnes & Noble, you go to Target, you go to Walmart, you can go wherever. Okay, I got nothing against those places. You can buy comics there, that's okay. But make your first stop that local comic book store that is the expert, that has been there for decades, that has turned on hundreds, if not thousands of people in your community to all of our favorite art form, which is comics. Everybody, I'm out of steam. I'm out of blah, blah, blah. So thank you for watching. We will see you extremely soon. As soon as I can find the button, I'm going to click it and we're going to go out. See you next time.